So yesterday there was an interview with Miguel Ramirez, the current head coach of Charlotte FC, and he was asked on the current roster and also the expectation heading into this expansion year for Charlotte FC and what their fans should expect. And one key thing that he said that really triggered a big talking point within the league is that we're screwed. Now, I will say this, when this interview was conducted, it was conducted in Miguel Angel Ramirez's native language in Spanish, and maybe this might be an example where the translation might been lost, and maybe he actually didn't mean that they are totally screwed. And the other thing that I've also say is that maybe this is an example of the media is just kind of being very picky in terms of choosing specific words to kind of spread fear within a fan base. But when you look at this team in general and look at the squad in general, because the thing that you mentioned that they are really screwed is mostly on the squad building part. He's not completely wrong. I mean, there are definitely some concern that this team has heading into the expansion year. So today we're gonna do a video taking a look at whether or not if Charlotte FC indeed is screwed heading into the expansion year, and we'll talk about some of the red flags that tells that they are screwed, and then we'll also take a look at the current roster that they have built so far heading into their expansion year. So the first red flag for Charlotte FC that kind of proved that they are definitely screwed heading into the expansion year is their head coach openly admit that there is a problem with the squad roster. Now, again, I mentioned already the fact that we still don't know. Maybe that's just kind of a loss in translation, or the media being kind of a little bit picky in terms of some of the words to spread some fear within the Charlotte FC fan base. But anytime when you have a head coach that kind of openly admit that they're in some trouble, that's usually not a good look. And especially, I think they've also mentioned the fact that Miguel Angel Ramirez did even say that he's very transparent toward this. So it maybe tells you that maybe he actually does mean it. The fact that this team is screwed, and that you can also start to sense his frustration too with the way that this team is being built. So again, that's something that is definitely not a good look for this team when your head coach is just openly admits that something went wrong. And again, we'll see whether or not it can be fixed. I mean, again, I'm kind of going to jump a little bit into this video, but when you look at the roster, they still only have 16 players that are senior player of this team. That is not a lot of players that isn't in the senior roster, and consider we have 2 weeks left, and unless if Charlotte decide to make a lot of moving within the last 2 weeks, this team is going to be paper thin heading into opening day. And the other thing I will also say is that even if they do fill out a lot of these players within a 2 week spell, it's still not really a good look, because we are in the midst of the preseason, and when you decide to sign a lot of guys in such a quick succession, and they don't even have time to kind of settle in with the team, it's not going to work out when the regular season basically begin. I mean, there's an old saying that when you basically rush to go to work, even if you get there on time, you basically are going to be falling behind, because you still need to, of course, get readies and stuff like that. And hence that's why there's always that saying that you never want to be on time when you're at work. You always want to be there early, so you can just make sure you prepare yourself when you get to work, and kind of have that zen mindset that you're ready to kind of work, and not just kind of get there on time on work and still doesn't have that mindset of ready to get started right away. That seems like is the case for the Charlotte FC team, where they're just rushing through this. And I think even if they do get the pieces that they needed, are they going to be completely ready? And the chemistry level of this team is not going to be completely set when opening day does happen. Filling up international spot with bunch of guys that are unproven talent and upside. Now, again, this is also not really unusual with expansion team, because when you sign up a lot of these international players, they could be good and they could be bad. But when you look at the international players that they've signed so far, I mean, besides Anton Walks, who I know for sure. He's definitely a proven MLS talent he has shown during his time with Atlanta United. None of these international players that I've seen are really guys that can really just wow me and say that yeah, he's gonna definitely work out when he comes to MLS. And not to mention the fact that I've also heard that there's a lot of rumors that some of these guys that they got from other league, they're not really have a lot of upside, and their talent is kind of very unproven, and just it's very questionable whether if of course will work out. And when you have that kind of thing heading into the expansion season, yeah, that's also not a good look. And that again, filling up with so much international spot because of these unproven talent upside, that could come back to haunt this team, especially if most of those players, their upside and their talent is not as good as when they first when they bought them during their squad building process. Focusing on too much on the defense and midfield during squad building. Now, I'm kind of being a little bit nitpicking in terms of this red flag, and in some way, this isn't really kind of a red flag because we've seen before where expansion team tends to focus very heavily on the midfield and defense. I mean, a good example of that is Nashville SC. I mean, they focus a lot on their midfield and defense, and I kind of question that maybe they focus that a little bit too much, and are basically not even thinking about their attack, which it's good the fact that the team is focused on trying to have a decent midfield and a decent backline to not concede goal. But if you don't have any attacking threat and you're unable to score a lot of goals throughout a season, you're not going to win a lot of games. And that's kind of the issue with the Charlotte FC team. Like when you look at this attack, I can't tell you one guy on this team. I mean, maybe Karol Swiatkowski that they sign as a DP is going to be the main goal scorer, but who is he? Where is he going to get the service from? Like, they don't really have a reliable number 10 in this team, and they especially do not have a reliable winger on this team, which we'll definitely get to a little bit later of how that is kind of one of the things that made Miguel Ramirez says that they're screwed because they just don't have a winger right now to run his 4-3-3 system. Speaking of which, trading Ishmael Tajouri-Shradi to LAFC in the expansion draft. So, throughout these last couple of expansion drafts, we kind of sometimes look back to see maybe there was some mistake that an expansion team made in the expansion draft. Well, with Charlotte FC, it's hard to believe, but we already maybe found out that they already made one big mistake in the expansion draft. And that mistake is trading Ishmael Tajouri-Shradi to LAFC. Now, I get that they needed a lot of general allocation money capital after they burned a lot of that on international spot. But still, Tajouri-Shradi, he is a guy that, although, at times he could be a bit injury prone, he is a proven MLS talent and a guy that can definitely be a threat going forward on the attack and especially in the wing. And I've even mentioned before when he was still with NYCFC. The only reason why he's not starting regularly is because NYCFC have just so much high-end talent in their attack that it's even keeping out Tajouri-Shradi being in the starting 11, where he can basically, if he's on any other team, he would definitely be a regular starter. So, yeah, I mean, I'm kind of surprised that they decide not to keep him. And not to mention this of course, is a winger, which, they desperately needed, as their head coach have said. I mean, that's a very strange move, and a move that is going to definitely come back to haunt them later. Though, I will say that later in this video, it probably have already came back to haunt them, that they decided to get not pick, well, they did pick Tajouri-Shradi, but not kept him in the expansion draft, and instead traded him off to LAFC just for some general allocation money capital. Not being able to acquire a good number 9 in Michael Ruiz. So I mentioned before in the news of the week, they were targeting not only Karol Swiatkowski but also Michael Ruiz, and they were kind of battling with the Philadelphia Union in order to get this guy. And ultimately the Union did of course get this guy, and that Charlotte has to settle with Karol Swiatkowski. And I will say this, in terms of what I heard, and in terms of the number wise, Michael Aru is a much better option than what Karasweditsky is. Now, I could be completely wrong. I mean, it will be interesting to see when both of these guys take the field with their respective MLS team, and we'll see whether if one of them is going to be a decent option. But at least in terms of the number wise, and from what I heard, it seems like Michael Aru was a better option, and that, if that of course is the case, then Charlotte is going to come back and think that this is also another mistake that they made, where they probably signed the wrong number 9, and especially the wrong DP number 9 on their team. Not being able to get a high-end talented winger in Darwin Marchese. So again, this is something that kind of also pushed to a point where Miguel Angel Ramirez says that this team was screwed with the way that they were getting a very talented player in Darwin Marchese in this team. And then all of a sudden, yesterday it was a breaking news saying that deal is now off, and that deal is being collapsed because apparently there was some off the field issue that Darwin Marchese has during his time with Granada. And again, that's something I think for Charlotte FC is kind of unfortunate, and I will say that that's something that they can't really control. But you know what they could have controlled? Getting Ismail Tajouri-Shradi in the expansion draft. And again, I talked about how this move has already started to come back to haunt them. This is an example of it, because I mean obviously they didn't get Darwin Marchese, but if they would have got Tajouri-Shradi, then they can at least say, okay, well, at least it's unfortunate that we couldn't get such a highly talented player, but at least we have an MLS proven winger in the backup. Well, now they don't, because again they traded Tajouri-Shradi to LAFC, and that's just kind of left the problem right now they currently have, which is they just don't have any winger on their roster, and that they're basically facing a situation where they might even have to play some player on that forward line out of position just to fill that space. Their technical director, Mark Nicholas, left back in January. So this is something that I don't know if I mentioned in the news of the week. I probably forgot to mention this, but this definitely was a big headline in this expansion team, where not in a good way, where one of their GM or one of their technical director basically just kind of say adios and decide to head to the Columbus Crew. And anytime when you have a high rank front office kind of member decide to leave the team before the team actually even play their first regular season game in club history, something is definitely gone wrong in terms of the front office, and that there is definitely some evidence that there is some disarray in the Charlotte FC front office. I heard there's even some other high-ranked front office member of this team have already left this team because of some issue that they have. And again, when you have a front office that is in a bit of a disarray before you even play your first regular season game, it kind of also explains a big red flag of why their squad roster build has been relatively slow, because if you don't have the front office member getting together to sign the players that they necessarily need, or in this case they're being a little bit disarray, it's going to slow down the progress, and hence that's why there is this problem of them not really getting enough pieces in their squad, and this squad is still long from being completed to be a team that at least would be respectable heading into their expansion season. And then lastly, most of the front office member of the Charlotte FC team is foreign and have no background in MLS. And I can't tell you how this is actually a huge red flag, and something that I think other teams need to know of that is the fact that when you decide to sign someone that will take control of your team, and they are a foreign, or they have no knowledge of how the MLS rule actually work, it's not going to go well. And it's not only have proven that this, of course, has proved havoc for Charlotte FC, but you look at other teams that have foreign owner, like Inter Miami, for an example of how they decide to hire a couple of guys, and then of course also have their owner Jorge Mas, who doesn't know anything about the or they're either of course foreign or have not really a lot of idea in terms of how the roster rule, of course, would work, and it turns out to be bad, and hence that's why they of course had that situation where they're now trying to live with this punishment of them breaking the the rules in terms of game that they made back in September. Or if you look at FC Cincinnati case, where Cincinnati also went with a foreign kind of front or members of that front office that are foreign and have no knowledge of MLS, and how they have been a disaster in terms of trying to build a team. I mean, it's really important for that you hire someone that knows how the rules works in terms of building a squad, because it's definitely more difficult in terms of building a squad and follow all these restrictions compared to other league. Heck, I don't even know all the rules too. So obviously, if I was going to be a front office member, I might even have my hands full too. But you know, if you are able to get someone that is able to know the rules, and you know, Nashville is a good example of them actually got it right in terms of hiring those front office member, when they of course did get a guy that knows how the rules work and have already proven that they can build a decent roster. And now look where Nashville is, being one of the better expansion team in recent memory. So yeah, that's something that I think is a warning to any team that is going to be coming into the league in the future, or teams that is looking for a new front office, or just kind of shaking up their front office a little bit. Do not hire anybody that is foreign and don't know a lot about the rules of MLS. And I can even maybe go further and bring up another example in the San Jose Earthquakes. I mean, with Jesse Fornelli, I guarantee that he didn't know a lot of the rules of how there are so much restriction that he needs to do, and by the time he knows it, he got kind of frustrated about that, and ultimately was fired from the team. Now, let's take a look at the current roster of this team. And, you know, I've talked about the current roster in my season preview, but I thought, you know, let's go over again, because there is a couple of changes in terms of the current roster compared to when I talk about them in the season preview. Well, actually, I said there are changes, but there isn't really a lot. I mean, in goal, it's still pretty much the same for goalkeeper in Pablo Cesiaga, Christian Kalina, Adrian Zenijas, and George Marks. But one thing I didn't, of course, label in terms of the current roster is I did label in terms of what their roster, their kind of status is, whether they are a senior roster squad, whether they're supplementary roster, whether they come from the Super Draft, or they are basically take one of the international spots. So in the case in the goalkeeping position, you got Christian Kalina, the ones that taking one of the 10 international spot that Charlotte FC has occupied. And again, you know, when you look at the goalkeeping position, I think it's still going to be a battle between Cesiaga and Kalina in terms of who's going to be the starting goalkeeper. Like, for me, I would still go with Cesiaga, even though, you know, Cesiaga has been kind of a little bit inconsistent, especially during his time with LAFC, but I feel like I trust him more than Kalina, who you know, I've heard that he's a decent goalkeeper in Bulgaria and with Ludogorets, but you know, will he of course work well when he comes to MLS, a completely different league? I don't know. But we'll see who, of course, eventually will be the starting goalkeeper of this team. Now, in the defense, I will say that this is where they're actually pretty good in terms of their roster build. I mean, you know, they got Harrison Awful, who I know he is starting to get up to that age, but he is still an MLS proven fullback, and at times considered one of the best fullbacks in the league. Then they got Anton Walks, who, you know, I've already kind of shredded Charlotte FC in terms of some of their expansion draft decision and letting go of Tajuri Shradi to LAFC. Well, one decision that they at least made it right is to keep Anton Walks, another guy that is proven to be a very decent defender in the league. And then you got Christian Fuchs, who again, this is the big name that Charlotte FC got when they came into the league. Though again, it's gonna be interesting to see how many minutes he's going to get, because he is winding down his career and are in his mid-30s. Then they also got a decent signing in Jaylen Lindsey from Sporting in KC. Now they said that he is a homegrown player, even though technically he's not. I mean, I know he is from the Charlotte area, but I think he's only labeled as a homegrown player when he was with Sporting KC rather than him being at Charlotte FC. But nevertheless, again, I think that's a decent signing, and I expect him to maybe be a starter in one of the fullback position. You got Joseph Samora, a decent defender and a good serviceable MLS proven defender that I think he alongside with Walks will be that center back partnership. And then you got Christian McCoon, a U22 initiative, definitely has a lot of upside to be a decent player in this roster. But then you get to some of the players in that defense are that I feel like they're probably going to be used more for depth or just for utility reasons. So you got Guzman Carrero and international Jan Sobocinski, and then Adam Almer, who occupy one of the supplementary draft. But at least, when I look at this defense, they definitely have some depth in terms of their defense and have some quality, the defender in their team. So at least this is the one part that I think they're definitely not screwing. That I expect this could be a top 10 or even a top 5 level of a back line in the league with the player and personnel that they had. Now let's get to the midfields. Brent Bronico, who he hasn't been playing in MLS for a while. I mean, he's been on loan with a Charlotte team in the USL Championship, that is the Charlotte Independent. It's going to be interesting whether if he gets some minutes. Jordi Elsevier, an international and another guy that they hope that is going to do well. That is a young South American player that they can develop to be a decent player. And then Sergio Ruiz, a guy that he was signed as the first ever player for Charlotte FC, and I've heard there's been some crazy things about him bouncing around the Segunda division in Spain. So it's going to be interesting to see whether if he is going to finally be decent when he comes to this team, because I know when they first signed him and made him the first sign, there was a lot of people, or at least the team says that he can be a star player for this Charlotte FC team. Then they of course got Alan Franco, again another very young player down in Argentina. They hope that will have some upside. And then of course they also signed their first homegrown in Chris Herget, and then they also got Ben Bender, who was their number one who is this year's number 1 draft pick in the Super Draft. And they've also said that there is a future, that he not only is going to be part of the team, but he could maybe be even starting for this team heading into opening day. So when you look at this midfield, it's okay. I mean, this midfield, they're again, this is where I go back to the unproven talent and upside. There's a lot of that in the midfield, but this is where we get to the 4 of this roster, and this is where I think is where Charlotte FC is really screwed. So they got Jordi Reyna, who is an international senior roster that it currently occupied, and I've heard there's rumor that they're actually putting Reyna in the wing area, which that seems like it's a terrible idea. They got Mackenzie Gaines, who now occupies a senior roster after he was picked in the expansion draft, and again, I'm not quite sure whether if I think he is going to get some minutes, which is definitely good news for him, because that's kind of something that he wants, even though technically I feel like he could have definitely got that if he would have stayed with Austin FC. Then you got Vinicius Melo, U22 initiative, and another guy that, again, part of the unproven talent and upside category of whether we still don't know whether if he is going to be decent or not. While their other draft pick is to draft Kyle Holmgren, who I think he's probably most likely going to be just a utility player. They also got Christian Ortiz, who I think he is the only guy on this roster that is labeled as a winger, and a guy that has played under Miguel Angel Ramirez. Though one thing I will say about him, and at least from what I heard, is that he's not actually very decent, and a guy that probably should not be a guy that you want to be trusted as a regular starter. And then lastly, they of course got Kirill Swiderski, a designated player, and a guy that they hope that they actually got it right in terms of getting a proven number 9 that can score the goals for this team. But like I said, when you look at this roster, it's still a very paper thin roster. I mean, at least the defense is actually good, but in terms of the midfield and definitely the forward line, that's when there are that issue, and that's when Miguel Angel Ramirez says that this team is kind of screwed in terms of the roster build. He basically are pointing out to the midfield, and especially in that forward line where they're clearly not finished in terms of building their roster. So really, to kind of answer the question, is Charlotte FC screwed? Well, kind of. They're not as screwed as you think that they're probably going to be completely unready for their in terms of playing their first game, but in terms of their expansion season, and if you expect this team to be anything more than a team that might be fighting for the bottom of the, or fighting for some fighting maybe for a playoff position, or even trying to not win the wooden spoon and not finish dead last in the Eastern Conference, yeah, that's a little bit too much to ask with this current roster that is clearly not ready to at least be respectable heading into expansion season. But let me know in the comments below, what do you think of this video? And if you're a Charlotte FC fan, let me know in the comments below, do you think these red flags are justified, and that do you think that this team indeed is going to be having some issue heading into their inaugural year? But until then, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.